Korlon sat with the rest of the supply squad listening to their new orders. Korlon, alongside other surgeons, would be sent to the battlefield to fight the Veriks. Both the Korlon and Veriks had landed on the planet around the same time and had agreed to split it, but something had changed. What exactly had changed appeared to be above Korlon's pay grade, but it meant he would be going to the battlefield. The officer was telling them they would be the reserve troops, but would be deployed if necessary. Korlon, along with most of the other members of his squad, was trying to remember their basic training, which was the last time he shot a gun. The officer moved on, giving them their orders for the next few days, which were to prepare the supplies for the upcoming battle. As the officer finished his presentation, someone raised their hand and asked, "Is it true that we will be fighting alongside the humans?" A murmur of excitement shot through the room. Everyone had heard the rumours that the humans were supporting them, and they had also heard the legends of the human battles. The officer waited for them to quiet down before answering. "Yes, the humans have sent a company of soldiers to aid us. They are already here, and you may see them around as they are also preparing for the battle." At this, the whole room erupted into excited whispers. Everyone wanted to know a bit more about the humans and was wondering if they might catch a glimpse of them. The officer didn't even try and calm everyone, but simply ended the meeting and sent them back to work. Korlon found Lorgo, who was overflowing with excitement. "Do you think we'll get to talk to the humans? Will they tell us any of their battlefield stories?" Lorgo asked. "You don't know the human language, even." "Yeah, but most of them can speak the common tongue. We'll probably only see them from afar as we bring them supplies. Let's get a move on. We still need to finish our supply run." "I hope I can talk with one of them," Lorgo said, as they left for the mess hall with a load of food. After only a short walk, they got to the kitchen where the head cook looked over the food. The kitchen was connected to the cafeteria with a serving line connecting them. Lorgo was absentmindedly looking around when he suddenly froze, and then started tapping on Korlon to get his attention. "What?" Korlon asked, but Lorgo just pointed into the cafeteria. 3 humans were in the cafeteria, 2 of them eating. They all were large and bristling with muscle. From the kitchen, both Korlon and Lorgo could just barely hear them squeaking in their guttural human language. As they listened in, unable to understand what was being said, one of the humans stood up and walked over to the serving line. He towered over the server. The human towered over the server and began to speak, but unfortunately for Korlon and Lorgo, so did the head cook. "Everything looks good. I was wondering if we could get a large delivery next time. The humans can eat quite a bit, and I don't want to get low on anything." It took a second for Korlon to bring his attention back to the head cook, but managed to reply, "We should be able to do that. Just submit a form saying what you want more of." "Good, you can go then," the head cook said as he went back to work. Both Korlon and Lorgo looked over at the serving line, but the human was already gone. They started to leave, when Lorgo looked back and then waved over the server. He looked around and then slipped over to them. "What did the human ask for? Was it extra meat?" Lorgo asked, eyes gleaming with interest. He asked if we had a mild, not spicy version of the main dish," the server replied. "Also, he wanted to know if he could have a extra dessert." "Oh," Lorgo said, a bit surprised at the answer. "I also gave him a larger serving. I don't think I've seen a Sturgeon as big as him," the server said. "You should get back to work. The head cook is coming back." Korlon and Lorgo nodded and slipped out of the kitchen. The rest of the day was busy getting the supplies ready for the upcoming battle. Ammunition, food, fuel, and medical supplies all had to be prepared. The next day, Korlon and Lorgo were in the loading dock receiving a shipment. Lorgo wasn't paying much attention as 2 humans were next to them discussing something in their native language. One of them was dark-skinned with dark hair, while the other one was light-skinned with blonde hair. They would occasionally point at the loading door and then to a piece of paper they were loading. "Everything looks good. Do you have anything else?" Korlon asked the delivery man. "Yeah, there is one last package," the delivery man said as he handed Korlon a package. Before Korlon could reply, he heard a loud thumping. Korlon turned to look, and one of the humans had covered the distance between them. Before any of them could react, the dark human lunged forward and smashed his knee into the delivery man. As the human landed, he grabbed Lorgo and threw him at the blonde human while shouting, "Bomb!" in the common language. The dark human tore the package out of Korlon's hands and stared at it with one of his eyes glowing blue, a cybernetic enhancement. The dark human then threw Korlon to the blonde human. Korlon missed what happened next as he was caught by the blonde human, but he heard a boom and then felt something large pressed on top of him. As he tried to wiggle free, whatever was on top of him moved and then spoke in a heavy accent. "Are you okay?" Korlon looked up to notice the large thing on top of him was the blonde human. The blonde human had protected both Lorgo and Korlon with his body. The human asked again, "Are you okay?" This time Korlon replied, "Yes, I think I am at least." "Good. There should be a response team here soon," the blonde human said as he got up and rushed over to the dark human. Korlon couldn't tell from here, but it looked like he was injured. Lorgo finally got over his shock and spoke. "Did you see what the humans did?" That was amazing. Colon looked at him in surprise, as they had almost died, but before he could reply, the response team arrived. There was a flurry of activity as the situation was assessed. Both Colon and Lorgo were sent to the medical ward, but neither of them had any injuries. They were then sent to an interrogation room. Both Lorgo and Colon looked at each other worried. They didn't have long to think about it, as a human woman entered the room, followed by a sergeant officer. Lorgo and Colon started to get up, but were interrupted by the officer. At ease. We have some questions for you. Of course, anything we can answer, Lorgo replied. This time the human woman spoke perfectly in the common language. I'm Major Powell, sir. Did you recognize the delivery man? Yes, he is from the local town. We get deliveries from him every week, Lorgo answered. Do you know his name? I think it is Sorven. He works for the Argyle Trading Company. Major Powell, sir, jotted that down as the Sergeant officer spoke. That is unusual. The Verrex never hire people from outside. We need to first verify it was the Verrex, but they might be in a difficult position if it was them, Major Powell, sir, replied, and then turned her attention back to Lorgo and Colon. Did you notice anything about the package? No, I barely had a chance to look at it before the human took it, Colon answered. Okay, I don't have any more questions for you now, but we might need more information from you later, Major Powell said. You two can take the rest of the day off and rest, the Sergeant officer said. Before Major Powell could leave, Colon blurted out, How's the human doing? The one who grabbed the bomb? Major Powell looked back at Colon and then answered, He is doing fine. He should be fully recovered in less than a week. Major Powell left after this, and both Colon and Lorgo went back to their quarters to rest for the rest of the day. After hearing about the bombing and how the humans heroically saved them, everyone was extremely motivated. It only took a few hectic days to get the Goliath transporter completely supplied and moving. While it was called a transporter, the Goliath transporter was more of a mobile base. Attacking one of these was more like sieging a base than attacking a vehicle. The only thing it had to worry about were non-mobile bases that could rival them in power. Both Colin and Lorgo had been on the Goliath transporter for over a day already, along with the rest of the supply squad, many other Sergans, and most of the humans. They were already approaching their final destination, a point just out of range of a Verrex base. Then the transporter halted. They had arrived. Everyone started working then, either putting the transporter in base mode or preparing for the battle soon. Colin was part of the second group and was gearing up and checking his gun, hoping he still remembered how to use it. After he had checked his gun for the third time, Colin left to meet with the rest of his squad. Most of the soldiers were already there, including the human soldiers. Lorgo noticed him and waved him over. What took you so long? Are you nervous? Lorgo asked him. Yeah, a bit, Colin answered honestly. Don't worry about it. Look at the humans, they are all calm. Colin looked over at the humans, who were chatting in their native tongue. He couldn't tell what they were saying, but it seemed like they were joking. Colin saw the blonde human who had protected him from the blast. He was talking with another human, but Colin noticed that his hand was also shaking. Everyone stood around chatting and waiting for their next orders. They finally came with Major Palser. She strode into the room and shouted something in their native tongue that got every soldier at attention. She then said, We are moving out. The human soldiers quickly got ready. However, only 8 soldiers followed Major Palser. Colin noticed that one of them was the blonde man, whose hands were no longer shaking. The rest of them seemed to get in a supporting role. One of the large doors leading outside was opened as they got ready to leave. Do you see those big chunks of metal they are carrying? They are actually shield generators, Lorgo said, pointing at the humans. Why are they bringing those? Colin asked. It's a strategy. The humans once used their shields to march directly into a fortified base and attack them from the inside. I bet they are going to do it again. Why don't they just shoot them with something like an anti-tank weapon? Colin asked. The terrain was treacherous when they used the strategy, so the base didn't have anything like that, Lorgo said, proud of his knowledge. Colin looked out at the flat plain leading up to Verrex base. The terrain looked anything but treacherous, but Colin just nodded to Lorgo. The 9 humans began marching towards the Verrex base, with the 8 soldiers surrounding Major Palser. They marched directly across the battlefield until a shot was fired at them. It was easily deflected by the shields, but it was only a warning shot. They stopped marching, and Major Palser stepped out in front. Speaking into a microphone, she said, We have just negotiated a peace deal with the Verrex government. Please stand down. Everyone looked at each other. No one had heard about a peace deal. It appeared that the Verrex hadn't heard about it either, as they appeared to do nothing. Several minutes passed before Major Palser spoke again. As previously stated, we have negotiated a peace deal with the Verrex government. We ask that you stand down to prevent any accidental harm coming to either side. After a long wait, a vehicle came out of the Verrex base with a large flag attached to it. It drove around a little while before returning to base. Upon seeing it, Major Palser turned around and marched back to the base with the other 8 soldiers. When she got to the base, she looked at her soldiers and said, "We have a ceasefire with the base for now. They should get news of the peace deal soon. Everyone can return to their rooms, but stay alert in case we need to respond to something quickly." The human soldiers replied with a shout and quickly started leaving. A surgeon officer spoke next. "You had her. Stay on guard, but you can go and rest." "I thought I would get to see the humans in action," Largo said, disappointed. On the other hand, Corlin was more than ready to follow the new orders. He quickly left and took off his gear. It wasn't how he had expected his first battle to play out. A few days had passed and the ceasefire had held. It appeared that they were just figuring out how to carry out the agreements in the peace treaty. Corlin had no idea what was actually in the peace treaty, as it was above his pay grade, but it had gotten peace. With the peace, the humans were also leaving. Corlin still had one last thing he had to do, and so was waiting in a hallway to see the Dark Human, the one who had been injured in the explosion, transferred to the human ship. Corlin wasn't the only one waiting for him, as many other Sergens were in the hallway. At the end of the hallway, the blonde woman was waiting to take the Dark Human back to their ship. They didn't have to wait long, as a gurney carrying the Dark Human was wheeled out by two Sergen nurses. As they wheeled him by, the Sergens cheered. Corlin cheered alongside them and shouted out thanks to him when he passed by. The Dark Human saw him, smiled, and nodded at him. When they reached the blonde human, the Dark Human asked something, but it was in his native language. The blonde human replied in the native tongue before wheeling him away. As everyone started to go back to their duties, Corlin rushed over to the nurses. "What did he ask?" Corlin asked. The nurses were surprised, but still answered. "The injured human asked if they had won the battle." "And what did the other one say?" "He said they had won the battle. A perfect victory."